Yes, it is back. The techno chicken, the boomkin, the fat chicken. Listen, Marcelian isn't here to say whatever he has on his heart regarding the boomkins, because we all know he loves the fat KFC chicken. But if you do love boomkins and you want to play a much better boomkin in Dragonflight, that is actually a possibility. Because obviously we are testing boomkin on Alpha Dragonflight with the new talents right now, and although some of them are not implemented or don't work, the general feel of boomkin can be felt by, you know, going through different kinds of builds. Now, obviously, this is the initial look at boomkin and see exactly how it is. We're trying to test it out, see if something works, feedback it, and hopefully get it to be smooth and functional once, you know, Dragonflight releases. And if you were curious as to how the boomkin looks so far on the alpha, and because obviously you're probably looking at playing it in Dragonflight, then this is the video for you. And of course, this is not the only video that you can see on Dragonflight Alpha specs and classes, because we do have a bunch more and a lot more to come. So if you like our content, hit that like and subscribe and bell notification thingy so you can be notified when we do all of these videos, because now we do them daily and not everybody knows we're doing them daily because they're not getting the notifications. We know, we're seeing, we have the analytics and we can look at numbers and analytics and algorithms and such. I'm using big words that I heard Marcelian use. But nonetheless, if you do like our content and you want to see more of it, support the channel by doing 2 or 3 clicks. It takes a couple of seconds and now we can actually go into the talents and look at the boomkin. Now, the general Druid talent tree has some potential issues that people have brought up, issues that do not really affect boomkin. Those issues being that the strongest utility abilities are on the boomkin side of the general tree, because if you do look at the general talents for Druid, you can probably see that Feral is all the way to the left, going a little bit into bear abilities and then into resto, and all the way to the right you have boomkin and stuff like Ursal's Vortex, Typhoon, Cyclone, and all of that stuff, as well as Dispels and Soothes. They're kind of all a little bit to the right. They're too far away from the other specs, so if you are playing some of the other specs, you might have gripes with the current distribution of talents in the general tree. If you're a boomkin, you probably don't give a fuck, so hey, lucky you. But I am saying this because there is a possibility that some of these can change or will change in later stages of the beta, so that it makes it more fair towards all the other Druid specs, so they don't have to sacrifice damage to get utility. So yeah, but so far it's looking very much in favor of boomkin. You have pretty much everything that you need on the right hand side of the tree. A couple of new things, or at least new in the sense that we haven't used them in the last 2 expansions, although they might have been old spells that I don't know about, one of which is Nature's Vigil, which I think is all the way down to the tree, which is similar to Vampiric Embrace or Ancestral Guidance from Shamans, where when you do damage, a portion of that damage is transformed into healing to a nearby injured ally. It's not as strong as the other ones, but it does help, right? Especially if you play like a big bursty Convoke or Celestial Lime or Incarnation build, that can transfer a little bit more healing into a close ally. Now, we don't know exactly how this targets. We can assume that it's kind of like smart targeting, where it chooses like in a specific area around you the most injured person and heals that person up. Outside of that, the general Druid tree looks very Druidy. You would have a lot of very generic spells, from Frenzy Regen to Barkskin to Typhoon, and Ursal mentioned that. One thing that's very weird that I do have to say is that Sunfire is unlocked in the general talent tree, and the basic Sunfire ability is not the AoE ability. It's a single target ability, and you have to put another point to get the AoE, which is weird. Why do we have to put 2 points? Why is it? Because this is never going to be a choice. You're always going to pick this, especially as a boomkin. You're never not going to pick this, so making them waste more points into it just feels weird. I don't know, maybe they didn't have enough points to put into the Druid tree, so you can justify 2 points, 1 into Sunfire and 1 something else. It just is what it is. You'll have to pick it. It's part of your core rotation, and you don't get it baseline unless you talent into it, so make sure you put that point in. Other than that, there are a couple of points and nodes that can give you a little bit more damage, which are probably going to be mandatory for you. But outside of that, it's a lot of utility. It's a lot of utility into other specs. So if you do want to, you know, I don't know, probably heal a little bit, which is usually what most people go with boomkin, you will probably want to get stuff like Rejuvenation and Swiftmend and stuff like that. That also unlocks other utility down the talent tree, which will probably be kind of slightly mandatory. We don't know, but we'll see exactly how that turns out. And with that out of the way, let's actually check the boomkin side of the talents, which starts pretty basic. It's not much to say. The left-hand side seems to focus a little bit more on AoE, where you do have a bunch of Starfall talents. And of course you have Stellar Drift, and you have the casting while moving, and you do have the extension of the dots, which is pretty much what we know about Starfall so far. And if you do want to talent heavily into Starfall to do a lot of damage, it still has a cooldown, which was something that I was never really in favor for, because it's your only AoE spender, and because it has a cooldown right now in Shadowlands, and for the most of Shadowlands actually, you would prefer to use Star Fires instead of Star Falls, ignoring your astral power generation in favor of just doing more damage, which is a weird concept, especially for a spec that relies so heavily on generating that astral power. There are a lot of talents that function into generating astral power, and if you do go all the way to the left-hand side of the tree, you'll get the Capstone talent, which is a choice between Fury of Elune and New Moon. Now, I like both of these, and they have always been a choice, because in the old talent trees, you would have them on the last row at the same time. You would probably always play Fury of Elune, because New Moon felt always undertuned. Now, I don't know exactly if it is undertuned so far, because, you know, numbers are always subject to change, and it's kind of hard to tell. And if you go towards the middle side of the tree, as the most noticeable capstones you'll probably see, which are not actually capstones, they're close to capstones, but you do have Convoke. Yes, Convoke is in, because Convoke is probably the best thing that happened to Druid in the last couple of years. Change my mind. You won't, because you know I am right. Convoke is actually kind of fun. It's on a 2-minute cooldown. It does seem to have the chance to spawn the, you know, the new moons, the more important spells, the more exceptional spells from its random kit of spells. It did proc a whole bunch of new moons. I don't think it doesn't do it all the time, but it's okay. It's fun. It's Convoke. You like it. Obviously, it's a choice between that and Incarnation, which I suppose if you had both Incarnation and Convoke, it would be a big burst window. I'm not too sure how I feel about it. I think it's okay. It didn't feel that bad. You obviously get to choose which one you want. Convoke is fun. I play with Convoke. I didn't play with Incarnation because Convoke is fun. You will notice another Covenant ability in Adaptive Swarm being also available on the tree, which again, it's pretty great. You can obviously do the Necrolord stuff. You have, I believe, Circle of Life and Death as well. And you can go all the way to the right-hand side of the tree where it feels a little bit more dot focused. You have Stellar Drift also there. You have Shooting Stars and probably the coolest capstone that they've added, which is amazing because it was about time, and it was the Torghast power, which in the talent tree is called Orbital Breaker, and every I think 15th shooting star that hits a target procs a new moon, which is pretty amazing. Obviously, because of that, you play a lot of talents that go into dots, Circle of Life and Death that makes your dots tick faster, so you can proc more shooting stars and all of that stuff, and it's pretty fun. It's passive. You don't really do much of anything. And I think I did play that with Convoke as well. Even though I was level 60, I was able to get both of the more core important talents and also Adaptive Swarm, which was okay, was good. I don't know if this is going to be the more single target focused build, because Stellar Flare has always been the single target dot, which was a pain to maintain in AoE. I rhyme, I'm a poet, what you want. So I would imagine with Adaptive Swarm and Circle of Life and Death and Stellar Drift and Stellar Flare, I said it again, you'll probably want to play this side of the tree for more raid-focused things. There are a bunch of other talents that obviously increase the power of your empowerments. There's some of them that are not currently functional. I think all the way to the bottom of the middle capstone, there's one that's not implemented for neither Boomkin nor Guardian, and I would imagine the same for Resto or Feral, if it's a talent that, you know, goes to all of the specs. And there's a couple of talents on the left-hand side of the tree, which is Elune's Favor or Anshi's Favor or the Favor of Elune or something like that. It's a choice talent between, you know, the solar flavor of the spec and the lunar flavor of the spec, which on alpha does something different than what was determined in the future alpha build. So there's not much to test if you don't know exactly what it's going to be. It works really funky. So there's that. So obviously Boomkin is set to get a little bit more work into the talent trees, because some of them don't work and some of them are a little bit weird. However, I didn't particularly feel like there were any points that were not placed right. Obviously, I'm not a main Moonkin player, and I'm sure that there are a bunch of theory crafters that have gone deep, knee deep into it and analyzed like this would be better there and that would be better there. Fair, fine enough. That's never going to be perfect, but as opposed to Shaman, both Enhancement and Elemental, that had some clear options that would have been way better if they were swapped, balance seems to be okay-ish in terms of where the things are positioned. Now, the only question is it, you know, tuned properly? Which again, that's a question that we'll probably have to ask for the entirety of alpha and beta, because numbers are always going to change, and likely the best iteration and the most balanced iteration of balance, you see what I did there, it's probably going to be a week or two before the release, since that's when usually they do all of the number crunching and number tuning. So until then, don't particularly look at the numbers. The flow of the rotation seems fine because I don't know the exact numbers of everything. It didn't feel like in AoE I had to just mindlessly spam Starfire and not ever press Star Surge. You do have, actually, I did want to mention this, which I feel like a lot of people are happy for. I haven't personally experienced it in Legion, but you do have Favor of Goldrin or something like that, which is the little wolf arcane thing that shoots out of you whenever you use Star Surge, and I believe it also applies to Starfall, which is great. It does a whole bunch of arcane damage and promotes you spending astral power. Because I was thinking of it, am I just gonna spam Starfire and just overcap astral power and not care? Well, if I do that, I don't get this talent, which is actually kind of cool. Right now it does, I think, almost as much damage as a Star Surge. It might change, again, numbers are subject to change, so it is pretty good. And it does proc pretty often, which is, again, another good stuff. It's kind of single target-y, from what I was able to tell. So I don't know how much that you would value that in AoE, but it does do a good job into making you want to spend astral power and not just cap it and press Starfire in AoE, which also, another thing that I wanted to mention, and you do have this talent right now, but that's Warrior of Elune, and what that does on the Dragonflight Alpha is you makes your next 3 Starfires instant cast, which is really cool. This is probably my favorite thing to do as Boomkin right now, because it works so well. Whether you play the Arcanic Pulsar talent, which is all the way to the right-hand side, the legendary where you know, just get random procs of Celestial Alignments, or you play a lot of other legendaries that make Starfire, Star Surge, make Starfall free, and so on, which I'm actually gonna touch on in a second. This is actually really cool because, I mean, come on, you can always have you know, easily accessible burst AoE ready, and obviously you kind of want to time it with Lunar Eclipse because you want those Starfires to be empowered, but it's on such lower cooldown that you can pretty much time it either with a regular Lunar Empowerment, you can time it with Celestial Alignment, and if you play the legendary, the Arcanic Pulsar talent that, you know, we've been having as a legendary or as a mechanic for the last 2 expansions, it's cool. You can always time it, and going into managing your buffs and your procs and your little bursty windows makes the spec more fun, adds a little bit of replayability, and doesn't get boring as well. And I did mention the legendaries, which I think there's quite a bit, if not all of them, put into the balance tree. So obviously we have Arcanic Pulsar that I mentioned. We have another one, which is something Oneth's whatever, where whenever you Star Surge, you have a chance to make your next Star Fall cost nothing and not have a cooldown and proc that, which was the saving grace of the Starfall issue with it having a cooldown. So if you do go on the left-hand side of the tree to get that Starfall amazing playstyles and amazing AoE, you will probably really want to pick up this point just for quality of life, because even though Starfall has, you know, the 10-12 second cooldown, this can proc and make your next Starfall castable regardless of its cooldown, which obviously goes a little bit better. I don't think it's free. I think it's just procs to do an empowered damage, I believe, because I remember it spending astral power unless that changes in the future, so I don't know. But that's pretty much the main impression of the balance tree. It's better. I actually like Moonkin a little bit more now than it is in Shadowlands, and it has in BFA, because it does feel like you can make your build a little bit more varied. You're not locked in specific playstyles and specific mechanics and so on, since you do get to choose a lot out of all of these mechanics. And obviously you have a couple of new things and all things that are brought back, which also is really cool. There's a lot more work that needs to be done into Boomkin, so we will look at what the devs have in store for us, and we're either gonna have another video on it, or we're probably gonna, you know, report it on cooldown type episodes that you are probably aware of, because we do have those on the channel, and we have class guides, and we have these alpha coverage as well, and streams, and everything basically on the channel. And if you want to, you know, once again, know when all of these are going to be going live, even though you might not be following us on social media, which we do use to post everything, you can again click that like, subscribe, and enable those notifications so you know and get notified when we do these things. Thank you for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. See you next time. Bye-bye.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.